Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Every now and then a story crosses my desk that causes me to rethink what kinds of things can happen in this world. And Josh sent me notes to Steve, here's one for you. Have you seen one like this before? No, I have not seen one like this before. So, man finds he was married without his knowledge. Woman arrested. So Roland Richter and Zoria Goodley wrote this for Fox 44. The story is out of Texas. A 36-year-old woman is being held on felony stalking charges in a bizarre case where a wedding was held without the groom present and without his knowledge. So there were some problems with this story. The police chief said he's never seen anything like this. He said, I was here Friday evening when this came in regarding the complaint. I was talking to the lieutenant. I said, I don't think in 23 years I've ever heard of anybody who managed somehow to get married to someone who wasn't present for the ceremony. Now, some of you might know that there is a way for someone to be married without being physically present at the ceremony. It's done by proxy in extremely unusual circumstances quite often, where, for instance, a soldier is stationed overseas and they want to get married to somebody who's not overseas, and so they do it by proxy. But that's a different thing. That's not what happened here. So the police chief continued and said, at first we were really considering that it may be forged documents. However, once we made contact with the reverend who presided at the ceremony, showing that they were unified, that is, married, he basically says, yeah, the groom was not present, which makes you wonder about the officiant, but we'll get back. The bride, the woman, was arrested and booked into the county jail. Now, the chief said his office was originally contacted by a 42-year-old man on Friday who said that he'd found a package from an ex-girlfriend at his home, which included a copy of a marriage certificate showing he was married. The victim told police that he had been in a relationship with a suspect, and they'd actually gotten a marriage license a few weeks back, but they broke up before a wedding took place. So the chief began an investigation and determined that the woman convinced a pastor to certify the marriage without the groom's presence. The chief said that the officiant then went to the county clerk's office and filed the certificate. And I want to point out that we're talking about a pastor. And a pastor, of course, is a position in a church, okay? But an officiant is the person who oversees a wedding, so a marriage ceremony. So a pastor or a judge or a priest or all manner of people are authorized to officiate at weddings, making them officiants. And an officiant at a wedding has certain legal obligations that are contained in the law about what they must do to make a marriage official, okay? So the police chief explained that he'd spoken with the victim, the groom, who expressed that he's going through a significant process trying to fix the situation now. Chief says, I've talked to the victim. He's going through a significant process, and so that's a whole nother situation, which is a huge conversation. But what I have to do to fix it, and it's looking like the process is going to be quite lengthy. And I like the fact they quoted him as saying "nother." That's a whole "nother," and they actually put apostrophe N-O-T-H-E-R. I say that from time to time too, and people go, "Oh, Steve, that's another. It's another." Anyway, the chief explained how the situation has been a rare occurrence and how they've been handling it. He said, "I had to do some research and going through the family code, the law, and looking at the sections on marriage. There's only one caveat that I could locate, which was, active military overseas, unable to attend, but you still have to have a proxy stand in. Someone standing there saying, I'm here on that person's behalf, and this has all been authorized, blah, blah, blah. And also, it's part of the licensing itself. In other words, it's not a typical marriage license that you just then use. There's a separate kind they use for that. So the groom should have been there, and a proxy wouldn't have worked with this marriage license. And that should have been witnessed by the officiant. And so there's a problem. So the chief said that with the assistance of another police department, the suspect was located at a residence They obtained an arrest warrant for third-degree felony stalking, and she was transported to the county jail. And the chief said that they have not released any more information, especially who officiated the wedding, because they are still investigating. But that is my biggest question here, is you are someone authorized to officiate at a wedding, okay? Whatever it might be. So like I said, a whole group of people who can do these. Someone approaches you, said, I want you to perform a wedding ceremony. You say, oh, okay, I'll do that. When? Now. Okay. Where's the groom? He's not here. Okay, at that point, you'd think that was what they call a non-starter. You think that would be the kind of thing that would be a deal breaker? But what did she say to him to convince him to go through with it without a groom? Now, again, you might say, but Steve, what if you got confused and you heard there's this thing where you get married by proxy? This is important to understand. We've seen weddings. We've attended weddings. Some people have actually been involved in a wedding. And we know that while many of them are similar, they're not identical. So you might have a gigantic church wedding with 12 people on each side and the bridesmaids wearing muffs because it's wintertime. Or there might simply be a bride and a groom, best man and a best woman, and that's it. Or it could be in a church, it could be in a courthouse, it could be in a backyard. But there are certain things they all have in common. And that's because while this might be a beautiful occasion of the joining of these blah, 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 it is a legal thing. And as an attorney, I'm here to tell you that there is a legal aspect to a wedding. And the first thing you do is you go get a marriage license. You got to get that from the government, okay? Whether you get it from your county clerk's office or where you get it, I don't know. Probably varies wildly from state to state. There's probably some state out there where you got to get it from the DMV. I don't know. I'm just simply saying there's a document that you have to get, okay? And you have to apply for it and you get it. You pay some money for it. You got this document. You're not married yet. You need to have a ceremony. Now, the ceremony, like I said, could be this full-blown affair with all kinds of people, like you see in 4 weddings and a funeral, or it could be some small thing attended by very few people someplace else, officiated over by a priest, a pastor, a judge, whatever it might be. But the necessary elements of it are that sometime before that document gets filed back with whoever you got it from, with the government, the officiant has to ask both people in front of witnesses, in essence, do you intend to get married to this person? Yes. Do you intend to get married to this person? Yes. Is that what you want to have happen? Boom, you're married. Okay? So they exchange vows, and that is the statements they make out loud in front of witnesses that they intend to get married. Quite often they exchange rings. They might even kiss each other. You never know. But then there's still these documents. This document has got to go back to the government. And the officiant fills out a portion of it, and then it's signed usually by the parties that got married. So number one, how does the groom sign it if he's not there and there's no proxy there to sign it for him? And number two, how does the officiant sign a document saying, I conducted a marriage ceremony, these two people married each other, and I'm a witness to that? Because I can't witness someone doing something if they're not there. So if that document gets turned back into the state or the county on behalf of the state, and it says, I, the groom, agreed to marry the bride, who signed it now? That's a problem. But then for the officiant to sign at the bottom saying, I conducted a ceremony and I witnessed these two people, no, you witnessed one person. So don't get me wrong. It appears that the instigator of this was a 36-year-old woman who had a marriage license in her hands, but no groom, and thought, well, let's see if I can get someone to do this for me. And apparently she got someone to do it for her. And I personally think they need to track down that pastor, because it does say here it's a pastor in this case, and say, okay, explain to us what actually happened and how you thought that was a legal wedding ceremony. Now, it could be, and I'm just throwing stuff out here, it could be that she showed up with a guy and said, this is the guy on the document, and maybe the pastor didn't check ID. But I've known people who got married and the officiant actually said, I want to see your ID. And I also know, I've seen people filling out those documents at a wedding ceremony and witnesses signing. Witnesses. So I'm starting to wonder now what amount of chicanery she put into this to make it look like somebody was there, or was the ceremony literally conducted with one person there, a blank here, and the pastor imagining that, okay, well, she says it's okay. So that's the other thing we don't know, is was the pastor completely hoodwinked by somebody else being there who wasn't who they said they were? Or was the ceremony conducted completely without another person? In which case, you want to take a long, hard look at that pastor as potentially doing something wrong. Because the document that gets filed with the county that's being recorded by the state is a legal document. And I assure you, it contains all that language on there about I swear and affirm and blah, 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 and you sign it. This is not something you do willy-nilly. It's not something you do while you're drunk. It's something you should be doing with a very clear mind, intending to be bound by your signature, verifying the legality of something. And so the notion that a man can find out he's been married without attending the wedding and without any pre-knowledge of it is a very serious problem. Very serious, very serious. So it's a crazy story. Josh, thanks for sending it. I hope we get a follow-up on this. I gotta know if somebody was standing there pretending to be this guy, or was literally a one-woman wedding, in which case we got problems, all kinds of problems. So Josh sent it, and it was published by Fox 44. Roland Richter and Zoria Goodley wrote that. Man finds he was married without his knowledge, which you'd think he should know about, and a woman's been arrested for stalking. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Excellence is a habit acquired by continuous improvement on the little things you do with a firm belief that it's going to be better than before.